GM, and by GM, I really mean good afternoon if you're in some parts of the world, and good morning if you're in LA, and good night if you're in Europe. Welcome to the DeFi State, a weekly show brought to you by Hashflow. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nicole Benham. I host this show. I'm the head of community for Hashflow. And I actually have a co-host on this show, the CEO of Hashflow, Varun, who's always here with me, and it makes the show that much more exciting. On this show, we lead discussions with notable speakers, founders, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and generally the brightest minds in the industry. And we discuss everything from what the future of decentralization will look like to the future of crypto. I know I say this every time. My favorite thing about this show is that every guest brings something so different to the table and has such different insights on DeFi, Web3, and the world. I wouldn't have it any other way. If you're eager to learn and expand your mind, you're in the right place. If you're worried about the market and what's been happening, you're still in the right place. We'll get to that too. Also, if you'd like to share this space with your friends, I get this question every time. You can just click on the arrow at the top right of the space and then copy the link, tweet it out to your feed, text it to your friends, whatever works. Some of you may know this, but we tweeted an announcement recently. And in case you missed it, that announcement is that Hashflow has just teamed up with Wormhole to do cross-chain trading, which means trading will be ultra gas efficient, MEV protected, and with zero slippage. It's only appropriate that after this announcement, we have the two following guests to talk about what this integration means and much more. Today, our special guests are Kanav, president of Jump Crypto, and Saeed, who does strategic partnerships at Jump. What's up, guys? How are you?
GM.
Pretty good, Nicole. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
No. Excellent, guys. I think we've been working on this integration for quite some time. So quite, pretty excited to finally have it rolling. So I think we can talk more about this, what Wormhole does and so on. Nicole, you can take it over.
Yeah. I think the first thing I want to start with is, how is everything at Jump amidst all the madness?
Well, things are good, Nicole. I think the last few weeks, and maybe the calmest weeks I've personally experienced in crypto over the last 3 years, as a result of everything coming down post collapse and the way things have been shaken out. I think we're very fortunate and lucky to be in a very well capitalized position. Everyone's kind of heads down, shipping product, building new strategies. Everyone's adjusting to a new reality on return horizons and a different macro environment. But I'm feeling pretty good.
No, I was gonna say, I think Jump has been one of the most committed players I've seen. Despite what the nature of the market is, what's going on, they've been super committed to everything, to the space, and then just pure innovating generally. So I think I'm quite happy that things are really well with you guys. But let's just go on.
Oh no, yeah, I was just going to say thank you. Yeah, and it kind of feels a little bit like it did a couple of years ago, like 2019, where people are completely unable to trust each other again. Where liquidity is dry, capital environment is dry. That also means opportunity is high, but return horizons are longer, and that's just kind of the nature of the game now.
No, surely. But Kanav, just want to add a quick note that your voice is kind of muffled. Perhaps maybe there's a bit of noise in the background, but just wanted to mention that in case if you're in a noisy location or something. But I think we can dive into the interview rather, so we can talk more about Wormhole as well. I think for many people would be nice to kind of understand how. I think two questions, right? A, how Wormhole works. And then also, how do you guys compare Wormhole to other cross-chain solutions out there? And what's the trade-off? What makes it better? So maybe somewhat technical, non-technical overview would be interesting. And just assume that most people here in the space do not know anything besides the magic they see in the front end, which is the trades going through, but what's happening behind the scenes and what we do about the security and stuff like that. I think that would actually really be helpful. Could we go over that?
Definitely, yeah. Varun, I think as you and others in this space know very well, Wormhole is one of the most exciting portfolio companies that jumps involved in. We've famously, historically, uh, plugged a security breach in February. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, and our commitment to the project is pretty huge. I guess I'll just dive into the architecture of Wormhole overall. So we've got uh, the, uh, the genesis of Wormhole as a project occurred because there was a desire to take Oracle's cross-chain, where there was no such solution available when state was being developed on one chain solely. And so Wormhole was developed as a genetic messaging bus that connects today 22 heterogeneous networks, allowing the transmission of assets, messages, NFTs, or any other kind of state securely between one chain and the other. Um, the means via which it works is that is a network of guardians that are running full nodes of all the networks that are connected to. Um, when someone wants to transfer information from one chain to another, they're able to request the guardians via an on-chain contract invitation to observe the request for state. Um, the guardians then look at that state, attest to it independently, and when supermajority of the guardians are able to attest to the state, that aggregate signature is then able to be transmitted to the receiver chain to then be actioned upon. There's a whole host of security measures that live on top of Momo's token bridge called Portal. But as with respect to Hashflow and the integration that we're talking about today, this is leveraging Momo's generic messaging layer at its very core in doing cross-chain atomic swaps. And maybe Varun, I'll leave it to you to best describe how your team has engineered this solution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So just to give you a quick TLDR of how Hashflow and Wormhole integration works. Or more important, how Hashflow works in general, right? So the way Hashflow works, it's an RFQ system. So what's going on is the market makers are basically on the other side of the trade. They're the ones responsible for providing liquidity, meaning they're always the counterparty to any buy and sell order that a user requests. And that same fundamental applies to block cross-chain as well, where a user requests a quote from the market maker, and then the market maker signs the quote off-chain once the price is agreed upon between the user and the market maker, and then the quote itself, the signed quote, is sent is broadcasted on chain, right? And because it's a cross-chain function, cross-chain transaction, there's two things. There's two nuances here. You need to have one transaction on the source chain, where the user is selling the asset, and then you need to have another transaction on the destination chain, where the user is buying it, right? So an example is if you're trading Ethereum with AVAX, then you need to do one transfer on Ethereum, where you transfer Ether from user's wallet to the smart contract, and then you have another transaction which goes from AVAX smart contract to the user wallet. And then in between, we're using Wormhole's message passing to let these two chains talk to each other. So what's going on is the first transfer occurs on Ethereum, as an example, and then you have your guardians that Kanav described, which kind of, you can think of these guardians as sort of your validators or miners who are basically looking at transactions and making sure they are real transactions. They're verifying them independently. And once they reach a consensus that this is actually a legit transaction, then they attest that proof, and then anyone can basically relay that transaction on the destination chain. And once the transaction is relayed upon, the destination chain would know that transaction is legit. The right people have signed it, and because there's a consensus, it will initiate the second transfer. Now, as you would see, like between all these user flows, there was like no user bridge or anything else. And the reason is because your market makers are basically acting as oracles in a way, or who are basically giving you the quote. And because there is no more need for an external oracle to verify the price because the price is already agreed upon between the two parties who are trading, you basically can bypass the need for using any synthetic or wrapped assets to do the conversion on chain. So by basically moving the whole pricing logic off chain, you've essentially allowed for a more seamless cross-chain transfer. and not worry about any of the on-chain attack vectors like front-running or sandwich attacks, anything like that. And you've simply built a probably the most seamless way to do cross-chain swaps without the issues that users would encounter, right? And I think that's basically the beginning. The way we started right now, this month we are starting with just the stables, just testing this out, and then we'll ramp up to add like even the native swaps so people can just send Ether and receive BNB, for example, and not have to worry about using a bridge or using any other third-party applications to convert anything, right? And all this is really done, and the gas consumption is going to be the same as a regular swap, right? So I think one of the reasons why it's so cheap is again because of the Wormhole architecture and the simplicity of it, in the sense that all you're doing is one S load where you're storing the signature on the destination chain, but everything else happens off chain. So I like kind of this hybrid model that optimizes for the gas, but also allows for a very seamless experience, right? So that's the general overview of what the integration looks like. But I think a follow up question there would be maybe talking about the
Before we jump
security.
into a follow-up, Varun,
Yeah,
maybe one more thing to highlight that this architecture enables is the incredible capital efficiency of the swaps.
yeah,
Most cross-chain swap modules we've kind of seen so far have relied on big, thick liquidity pools deployed on chain, where you have to lock up hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in idle capital on chain, earning low yields to make these swaps possible. Um, we're all very well aware that these models are, unsustainable in and of themselves, kind of going forward, because of the capital environment, macro interest rates, things of the sort. And this enables people and liquidity providers to just in time step in and provide liquidity for cross-chain swaps, which will dramatically improve economics, reliability, fees, and a bunch of other stuff. And so the the architecture that separates the components that strictly need to be on chain with the ones that are off chain drive some other efficiencies there as well.
no, absolutely. I think I was going to actually, sorry, yeah, I should have highlighted this earlier, but I think I 100% agree there. Because one of the core functionalities or interesting things that comes out of this is cap efficiency, where you don't have to park tons of liquidity or TVL in the pools. And I think that's been a general criticism I had of most DeFi protocols, is that they are too capital hungry, in the sense that if you want to do anything on chain, you need to require users to lock in lots of TVL in order to price the assets, because if you don't, then the pricing just goes out of whack, right? So on the other hand, requiring like billions in TVL locked in is like not the most efficient way of putting the capital to work. And in this case, you're basically having on-demand liquidity where only when there is requirement for quote, you can actually provide that. But otherwise, you're free to use that capital and deploy it elsewhere, and use that. I think which makes for a much better market structure than we previously had. So which is like I tend to say, like the 2019 run was about 0 to 1 of DeFi, where people got excited about interacting with online calculators or vending machines. And now I think what we're building out is a more sophisticated market where things converge to a better capital efficiency at the same time, also preserving the permissionless nature of trading on these platforms.
Yeah, I also think it's worth just kind of from a high level, kind of talking a little bit about what Wormhole actually enables. A lot of people do consider it just a bridge that is meant for token or asset transfer. And I think the Hashflow implementation is a really, really nice use case to kind of highlight how you use this interoperability messaging layer, which really, like, the way that I like to think about it is like the internet that connects all of these different blockchains together. And so when we're talking about messaging, messages that are passing from one environment to another, you need a type of infrastructure architecture like Wormhole, so that dApp developers can actually access users regardless of what chain those users may live on. I think Wormhole does a great job of that, and Hashflow has done a fantastic integration to kind of say, hey, you can leverage all of these capabilities that we're bringing to you guys, regardless of whether regardless of where you enter into the crypto space, if it's on AVAX or if it's on Solana or if it's on ETH, you can take advantage of the technology that you guys have built.
Yeah, that's a good flag. Yeah, it's worth noting and maybe even reiterating that this integration explicitly does not use Corel, which is the famous token bridge built on the Wormhole generic messaging layer. So Hashflow is a completely orthogonal application built on that platform. Is one of the the most exciting ones that have kind of rolled out in the recent past. Varun, if I can turn this on you for a minute, what are your go-to-market plans uh, with the cross-chain swaps? You know, embedding them across DeFi interfaces and working with different teams to get this adopted.
No, absolutely. So I think the way we started off is first deploying to all EVM compatible chains because that's just the easiest place to start and it's a low hanging fruit. And I think right now we are pretty much with Wormhole. We are on 5 chains, like Ethereum, Polygon, BSC, Arbitrum, and AVAX. And I think Optimism is being added currently. So the plan is to start with EVM chains and then roll out with the stable swaps to see things, make sure that things are going well. And if that's going well, then the next stage is to add the native swaps. And then I think if that goes well, then we'll be adding non-EVM chains. We're still looking into the designs for Sui and Solana and such, so that further increases the functionality. And then obviously the next stage is to basically build but we already have the APIs that people can just plug in to take cross-chain liquidity from us. Now that the next GTM would be to basically work with most teams who have a retail-facing product and are looking for swap features. And I think the big advantage here is we are not just an Ethereum chain or an AVAX chain or Ethereum DApp or AVAX DApp. We're actually a general purpose DEX whereby you can basically swap across any chain or even do interoperability. And now with Wormhole capability, the GTM is basically to talk to any team that is looking for any cross-chain taker flows or that want to serve the users and allow the users to swap across chains. I think we just want to work with any of those guys. Anyone in the space right now wanting to have add like cross-chain functionality into the application, I think you should reach out to us. Send me a DM. I think the APIs are ready and we should be ready to go. Get the ball rolling. Right. So I think Saeed and I also talked about building a widget that people can just simply integrate into the application and instantly have cross-chain functionality available on the application. Right. So perhaps Saeed, you can tell me more about that because Wormhole has been spearheading that effort. So I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. I think the idea around a widget really makes sense. If you look at the way that Portal or some of these other interfaces that interact with Wormhole's architecture work, they all need a home to live in, right? And you have dApps across the ecosystem that, especially in new L1s, right, where you really want to attract TVL, you really want to get your first 1,000 users, and so they want to partner with a bridge or an interoperability messaging protocol like Wormhole to embed that technology right in the front end and make it super easy for their first 1,000 or first 10,000 users to come in and bridge assets into the protocol. Now, it makes a lot of sense to be working with Hashflow, for instance, to be able to bridge those assets and then swap them to the types of assets that are necessary for them to start interacting with those dApps. And that's kind of how we're looking at the ecosystem widget for Wormhole, which is like there's a lot of great cross-chain infrastructure and technology being built. And how do we do the first mile of that with Wormhole and let all of these other dApps integrate that directly into the front end so that they can enhance and make it and move a lot of the friction for them to attract users cross-chain.
Because I'm thinking like platforms like like Magic Eden and such, who have like both Ethereum NFTs and then Solana NFTs, or they have like multi-chain functionality. And I think many people who are buying Solana sometimes they may not have, a currency in those on those chains. So having these cross-chain widgets available instantly for people to convert and then buy them natively, where you basically take away or you abstract away this complexity away from the end user. And all they're doing is simply buying with what they have in their wallet, right? So they don't really care about bridging or going to something to convert and doing any of those things. All they're doing is seeing something they want to buy, and they just click buy, and then basically the APIs and everything else takes care of the rest. of all the conversions. So I think that's kind of the world when I get to, where you basically abstract away all this complexity from the user. And I think this integration is the first step to moving towards that kind of UX, where all the jargon is kind of hidden away from the user, and all they care about is just doing a swap, and which chain, which network, and which bridge to use, and all those things become almost irrelevant from a retail perspective.
100%.
Exactly.
We're inside. Maybe is it worth touching on the ability to hit multiple different runtimes quickly because of this partnership, and being first to market on new chains, given Momo's velocity of L1 deployments and its presence in 6 or 7 different runtimes, which is novel in the interoperability space.
Sorry, I kind of missed you said. I think there was a bit of a noise there. Could you repeat that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Very briefly, is it worth talking about the ability to hit new chains on day one as a GTM kind of going forward to be able to get their audience connected, given Wormhole's ability to play across so many different runtimes, and the go-to-market levels that gets us as an ecosystem?
No, absolutely. I think if I'm understanding correctly, you're asking talking about the importance of being on a new chain. On like let's say like Aptos or Sui, right now when the things are a little mellow, but then we know that things are gonna pick up once things get exciting, and being there, and how
Yeah.
we.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as well as Varun, as well as just the idea that it's such a non-trivial task to be able to support such a large diversity of runtimes, right? Kind of these heterogeneous environments, and so we've seen a lot of work done in the multi-chain world that's EVM specific, but I think everyone kind of understands that the crypto ecosystem and the crypto world is going to grow and become more and more diverse. And so, that's one of the reasons why we're so excited about Wormhole, is that they're just a team that has been able to prove that they can build connections to what many devs would call very hard places to connect to, whether that's Algorand or near native or Solana. And I think that's just part of the Wormhole DNA. So just want to hear a little bit more on how you think of expanding outward outside of EVM.
So we've been looking into a bunch of ecosystems, and I think the way I generally see it is I try to two things. Right, one, which chain has like a lot of demand, and I also generally like to look at the community feedback to see where they want to trade and so on, and to see what's where's the most excitement. So far it seemed like Sui and Aptos were the two, or the Move ecosystem more generally. It has had lots of excitement. The building on Move ecosystem is like super seamless, which is something I really like about them. And I think right now the market is like still far more nascent. That just being there and being the first mover is going to be quite exciting. So I think that is one ecosystem I'm personally excited about. Obviously, Solana has had a bunch of history now. They've been here for like nearly a few years, and I think it's been more battle tested than any other chains, or new chains rather. I think which means that is something that we have under contention as well. And also been looking into Celestia, which has been lately has caught my attention as well, in the sense that how they've designed their architecture. I think it's been something we've been heavily exploring. So I think these are some of the chains we've been looking into, and not to mention the Cosmos ecosystem as well. So the question really comes down to which one is easier to build, and also which one has like the most demand from a user perspective. And I think going there would make the most practical sense in my opinion. But I was also keen to hear you guys' thoughts in terms of where you guys are, like which ecosystems are you guys most excited about? Because at the moment I think we can go in any of these directions, and I think eventually we'll add them all. So the point is like about sequencing and which chain should come first. And I think it'd be interesting to see what chains are you guys most excited about, or what ecosystems you guys think could be the most interesting ones to launch.
Yeah, I think the on-chain trading volumes in general are so low right now that using any of them as a signal seems like a difficult proposition to undertake. And so the one that, at least in our perspective, given the design of Hashflow, its easy retail experiences and the API that you can integrate is think about which ecosystems are building consumer-facing apps that need liquidity,
Yeah.
and looking at those to kind of get traction. And obviously, there's large ecosystems across Solana and Cosmos, and maybe even in the Polkadot world that have built some front ends and some interactions that are useful. And the yeah, and those would primarily drive at least my take on where trading API integrations are needed versus not. The other piece is on the cross-chain one. I think on the cross-chain side, day one liquidity is super important for people bridging in, farming, um, trying to get access to the ecosystem overall. And so you mentioned the move ecosystems earlier in the conversation. Being there day one poses so many big great advantages because it allows you to get embedded within every front end, every ecosystem app, start to include some network effects in those ecosystems. And so I guess those would be my priors on where it would be exciting to get to.
Sorry. Hello, can you hear me?
Varun,
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go on.
do we
Sorry.
have a hard stop in a minute, or am I?
I think that's what Saeed mentioned. But that's fine though. I think we covered a lot in the 30 minutes we had. I think we covered the wormhole architecture, the upcoming ecosystems, how this integration works, what it means. So I think we can proceed to conclusion unless you guys want to add more things.
I mean, I just have, I guess the question that I want to end on is, what else are you excited about besides this integration in general in the space? What are you looking forward to? Yeah, in terms of like your roadmap.
Yeah, and Nicholas, I had a question from you. I'm sorry.
That question is towards all of you guys.
Gotcha. Yeah, maybe I'll take first crack here, and then Varun say please follow on. I think overall, we've been looking very deeply into the hardware acceleration landscape in the zero knowledge space. Everyone's very excited about ZKs. Uh, that's fairly kind of standard and canonical across the ecosystem at this point. There are so many different challenges at different levels of the stack that we need to solve in making algorithmic improvements so that we can actually practically do these things, not in the academic practical sense, but in the practical sense. And there are application level problems or infrastructure level problems on standing up proven networks to be able to serve the demand for proofs. But even before that, there is a demand to actually produce optimized circuits and hardware to be able to produce these proofs in reasonable time. And Jump's research team has been spending a bunch of time trying to publish results on accelerating primitives in that space.
Thank you, Saeed. I think you're muted. Or am I
I think we
wrong?
lost sight. One reason.
Sorry, I think Saeed is muted still, but yeah. I think we can take Kanav's answer as a source of truth here.
Yeah,
Go on.
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, no, but I think generally, yeah. If you're asking me like what I'm excited about besides this integration, I think this is the best time to build, right? I think I like the fact that we are pretty well positioned to basically deliver on the things we promised, and I think this is the time where most speculators and everyone is going to leave, and it's going to feel like it's the end of the world. But I think this is where I think I generally keep the philosophy that success comes to those who are patient. And I think it applies more so than ever in these conditions. Like this is where it's like the fortune favors the brave, and I think this is a time to make the difference and then reap the rewards later. So I think I'm quite excited about all the things that we just talked about in this space, and also a bunch of announcements coming up, including Hashverse is going to be. There's going to be some exciting Hashverse announcements coming up in the upcoming week. So for those of you paying attention, I think you should be keeping an eye out for those. And then I think we'll be adding more chains, and we'll be expanding across to different ecosystems. Right, so I think it'll be good times. A lot to be built, but I think we are ready to go.
I agree, and thanks, Varun.
All right. Saeed, you're back. I see your emoji there.
Saeed, I saw that.
For showing up. I think this was really helpful.
All right, thanks,
Awesome. Yes,
guys.
thanks for having us, conversation. Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
You'll see next.